and welcome back to our Making the Most series from Maryland SNAP Ed. I am Krista Carlson with Maryland SNAP Ed, and throughout this series, we've been talking about creative ways to make use of the foods that are coming into your home. So initially, our primary focus was school meals, because school meals have been free to every student or every child ages 2 to 18 since last March, regardless of income or enrollment status in the school system. Meals are free across Maryland. And we wanted to help folks make the best use of those meals, serve them as they're intended. And if there's leftovers, sharing some creative ways to use those ingredients for other things that your kids are going to love. So make sure you check back some of our previous live events for some of those ideas. We've also expanded our focus to talk about pantry foods. So whether these are staples that are in your pantry because they're inexpensive, they last a long time, or perhaps you're getting them through a food pantry. A lot of families are struggling right now for lots of reasons. It's been a tough year in lots of ways. So those resources are out there for you in the community to take advantage of. One thing that I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about today is the fact that you want to always make sure you're checking the latest information from your school district if you're going to pick up a school meal. Schools are in transition right now, moving to a hybrid model in many places. And so that might be changing their distributions, but the locations and the times. And today we're experiencing some pretty nasty weather out there across Maryland. Here in Baltimore County, we're getting pelted with ice. So that may interrupt meal distribution. So always, check your school's website, social media feeds, call if you need to before you head out. But please do continue to take advantage of those. I want to ask everybody that's on. As always, I love for people to introduce yourself. Just say where you're joining from. If you're in Maryland, put your county. If you're from outside of Maryland, your city and state or country. If you're joining us from further afield, post questions, post comments, answer other folks' questions. We want you to engage with us, and we'll be stopping to check those periodically. Also, we're going to put up a poll here. It's the first time we've done this, but click and respond. And the question is, have you picked up a school meal from within your community during the pandemic? Have you picked up a free school meal? So when you see that pop up, go ahead and answer. It'll be interesting to see. All right. So welcome Faye, welcome Brenda. It is chili time. Welcome, Jessica. All right. And so I'm going to introduce our chef today. We have a returning chef, Nate Bratko. He is our nutrition educator and project leader on the Midshore in Maryland. And as always, we're going to ask him to give us a quick summary of what's going on with school meals in his part of the state, and then also any additional food distribution resources that you want to highlight. So good morning, Nate, and also let us know, how's the weather over there on the shore?
Thanks, Krista. Yeah, our weather, I am zooming in from Easton, Maryland, located on the midshore, and we are just getting a lot of cold, icy rain. So please do be safe if you are going out. But please stay in. If you do not have to go out, just stay in. And thank you for joining us and cooking with me this morning. So it is obviously a pleasure to join you guys today from Easton, Maryland. Our counties are on a virtual day today because of the weather. So please, I would say contact if you need a school meal or if you're at home, please contact your local school that your child goes to get some more information. But you can always check on their website and the county Facebook page too. They do regularly post updates on it. I am happy to report this Saturday, Easton, I should say the Talbot County area is hosting a drive-through food distribution at Easton High School starting at 8:30. That is Saturday, February 20th at 8:30 until the food is gone. So contact the high school or visit their page for more information on that. In Dorchester County, students are learning from home today, but they have been transitioning back into the schools. So the information on grab and go pickup and school meals does change regularly, but they do post updates on their Facebook page. And also please contact your local school. They will have more information, local school food service department. The Another great resource I highly promote to everybody, regardless of where you are in the state, is to call Maryland 211. Just pick up your phone, hit 211. There are operators and so on to answer the phone 24/7, and they will also have information on local food pantries in your local area, and also resources that are available to you.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. We haven't pointed that out before, but that is a great resource, and it really runs the gamut of any sort of social supports, whether you need information on food access, you know, I don't know, mental health resources, just housing. So that is really a great resource, and that can they can help you navigate those, in particular around food. So thanks for sharing that, Nate. So today we are going to be talking about cooking with beans. Beans are just a really wonderful, really flexible staple from your pantry, very frequently being distributed by food pantries, and you might already have them in your home pantry right now. And also, if you're buying them, they're very inexpensive and they're super nutritious. So we're going to be highlighting those. We're also using canned tomatoes, which is another pantry staple, and sweet potatoes, which are again shelf stable, last a long time, might be given out by pantries. We also, one of the school districts, we had our guest on, Brenda from Cecil County, and they were showcasing one of their meal distribution, or sorry, one of their school meal sort of week's worth of meal items, and they included sweet potatoes in there. So there's even a chance you might be getting sweet potatoes in your meal distribution. So with that intro, again, welcome everyone. Thanks for attending. Post your location and your questions in the chat. And I'm gonna let Nate get started on this delicious recipe, black bean sweet potato chili.
All right, thanks, Chris. I'm going to turn my camera on, and we're going to first discuss. We'll get right into it, and we'll discuss a little bit more about the two forms of beans that you find. Obviously, we know that beans come in a dry form, but we can also get them in can. So if you are visiting the pantry or your grocery store, it can sometimes be a little intimidating to cook beans that are in dry form. But I am hoping today that um, to help you be more comfortable, cooking and preparing dried beans, because they do have a lot of benefits to them. So I have three different beans right here that we're not gonna cook all of them, all these different varieties, but I just wanted to highlight all the different varieties. They come in many different colors, sizes. So at first, we have our black beans. These are in dry form, as you can see that, um, they are nice and colorful. We have a multicolor speckled pinto bean. As we know, you can also find different varieties of pinto beans too, in different colors. And then we have a small red kidney bean. So we have red beans, black beans, pinto beans. Comment if you have a favorite bean that you love to cook with. Please leave a comment in the box. We'd love to hear from you. Now, when preparing dry beans, make sure to go through your beans first. And sometimes you may get some stems or some little piece of dirt or something, but make sure you can rinse them first too. But make sure to pick out any shells, or just kind of look to make sure that there's nothing else in there before you start cooking them.
That's
And
a
then you
great
can go ahead and
good
rinse
job.
them.
I was cooking some dried beans the other day, and I hate picking through beans, but my son was standing there and he just started doing it without me asking him. So it's a great kid job. It's like a treasure hunt.
It is, yeah. And the size of the bean too also help. There are two methods. You could either do a long soaking method, or you could do a short soak method. And we're going to talk about each method um, uh, right now. So the long soak method, a great ratio to always keep in mind is like a 2-to-1 ratio. So you're going to use about 1 cup of beans will yield about 2 cups of cooked beans. So volume wise, you're getting a lot more volume out of a dry bean than you would like say using a canned bean. So that is the benefit of using dry beans, is you're going to get more out of it because
Yeah.
the water does help it expand.
And since it does take some time to cook beans, I like to cook a lot at once and then I freeze small portions. I see Jessica told us in the chat that she likes to throw them in the crock pot. So that's a great way of doing it, is to cook a big batch of them and then you can use what you need and save the rest.
Right. That is a great point. Yeah. And as you can see behind us, we have a crock pot going already for our chili. So if you're soaking your beans overnight, you want to fill the pot so it covers it about 2 to 3 inches above the line of where the beans are. And then cover that pot, and you can place it in the refrigerator and come back to it the next day. When you remove them out, regardless if you're using the long or the short method, you want to make sure you change the water, because the water will get dirty and sometimes there's dust or particles on the outer part of the bean. So it is good to change the water before you start cooking. So night before, soak your beans. The short method, what you want to do is you're going to still fill up your pot about 2 to 3 inches above the beans of what you need. And then you're going to turn on your stove on medium to medium low, and you're going to cook it for about 2 to 3 hours or an hour. Take it off and let it sit for another 2 hours, and that will also help. What the soaking method does is it helps break down the starches of the beans, so it's easier to digest, and you do get a lot more volume. And when you think about the best bang for your buck, you know, a 1 pound pack of dried beans will give you 5 to 6 cups of cooked beans versus
And we do
two
have a
cups of canned
resource about
beans.
cooking with dried beans that we will share towards the end of the video.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I want to let you know that Brenda likes your shirt.
Yes.
And I have to say hi to Peter from Copenhagen, who has been a faithful attendee of these, and we love seeing you here, our representation from across the pond. So.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah. Another great benefit about beans as we get started, and I'm going to just start talking about the recipe as we prepare it, and also beans. Beans are edible seeds. So when we are eating beans, we are actually eating the edible seed part of the plant. And they are a great source of both protein and fiber, which is great at keeping our body healthy. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a super easy recipe. We are using canned beans today. Before we cook, I always like to remind everybody, make sure you wash your hands before you get started. You are working with food, and you also want to make sure you're working on clean surfaces, using clean utensils and tools as well too. So that helps with the cleanup later, because I know cleanup, not too many folks, that may not be like the most enjoyable part of cooking is the cleanup. So if you have a nice clean workspace before you get started, it's going to help after. All right, let's get started. So we have some canned beans. I am going to show you and demonstrate a different type of can opener. This is a can opener that opens cans from the side versus opens cans from the top. And it's a safer way to open cans. You can pick these up at a local store anywhere, especially if you have children. It's a little easier to turn. And it's a little bit safer because it doesn't leave you with a sharp edge.
I will say when I used to run a culinary after school club, the only time I ever had a kid cut themselves was not on a knife; it was on the edge of a can. So that's a really cool tool.
Right. So as you can see, we'll just open these up. Now we are going to drain and rinse the beans. And the reason for that is it does kind of wash off any sodium on the beans. And I have just a bowl here.
Yeah. Will say it's hard to see from here, the bowl, so I thought you were just dumping that on your counter. So
just like that. Then we're just going to give them a quick rinse.
Yeah, so as Nate said, when you rinse your beans, it rinses off any extra sodium. Also, all that liquid can change the sort of the liquidiness of whatever you're making. So you want to generally, almost every recipe is going to want you to drain the beans, but also rinsing them can help keep them from adding extra salt.
So once you have that, you could go ahead and add that to your pot. What I love about this recipe is it is just so easy. It's just everything goes right in, whether you're cooking it on a stovetop or in a crock pot, which we have behind you. You just put everything in there in your pot. It's a one pot meal, and it will, once you turn it on, it will start cooking. So we have that. We're going to add our can of tomatoes.
The other thing about recipes like this is they tend to get better the second day or the third day you have them. So it's always worth making a really big batch. You can double them, and you can, have leftovers for the week or freeze half of it to have for a meal later. We like to talk about cooking once and eating twice.
Right. I love that idea. And there's just so much creative. I think when we make chili, everyone has their favorite recipe of what they like to add in to their chili. With this one of the key ingredients we're adding we're going to try out today is sweet potato. So sweet potato, as we know, it kind of adds like a different layer of flavoring to chili. Whatever we're cooking with chili, it kind of all the flavors will come together and they marry as they cook over time. And with a sweet potato, it's going to add like kind of those notes in a different profile to your recipe. So if you have some favorite ingredients that you love to add, go ahead, leave a comment in the box. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Yes, please. And the sweet potato too is the starchiness can kind of thicken up the make it a little saucy. So this is a vegetarian chili. Doesn't mean you can't do a ground turkey chili or or a lean ground beef chili. But for this vegetarian chili, the sweet potato also adds some kind of substance to it. It makes it very satisfying.
Yep. And now when we're cutting our sweet potato, because these are medium sized, but if you have a larger one, it's good to grab your knife, whatever kind of knife you're using, make sure it is a sharp knife. And you can go ahead, keep the tip down, curling your fingers to the side and tucking your thumb and your pinky behind. And that gives you a little bit more stability when you're cutting, so your hand or the product doesn't slip. So once you have that flat surface, you could just go ahead and stand them up. It gives you more control over what you're cutting, and you can just cut it in cubes, slice it in half, and then you can cut again. We'd like to try and keep all the sizes about the same. That way it helps with everything cooking at the same time, but it doesn't have to be perfect. As you could see, once you have that flat surface, you're just cutting lines, making lines or rows, turning, and then that's how you get your squares.
So while you're doing that, we have some folks who shared, Tina and Brenda both love adding peppers to their chili. They're sort of a classic ingredient. My kids I have to say my son is a little picky. My daughter will eat anything, but he will eat peppers when they are cooked down in chili. They take on a different texture and the flavors really meld. Kara shares that she likes frozen spinach and mushrooms. So that's another way to add nutrition and substance to your chili.
Yeah. And, adding that, we were discussing this yesterday, was adding like a pinch of chocolate is also another great way. In different regions, chili is obviously made in different locations and different regions. And you can add dry chili peppers. That's also another great addition to it. Next up, we're going to add 1 onion. So onions, we don't like getting teary onions so my favorite tip from cutting an onion, if you have like this little root or this hair, you can slightly trim that off with your knife if you want. That way it doesn't get in your dishes. So we're going to leave it whole, and we're just going to slice it down the center, split it lengthwise or in half, just like this. But we're going to leave the root end attached. And this is my tip for reducing onions that make you cry. If you leave this little root end attached, it will cut down on getting those tears for the onion. So I hope that's a helpful tip for everyone. So once we have it, we're going to slice off the end of each onion. And then it makes it easier to peel too when you leave that. And when you leave that root attached. And this is just an easy way to peel onions. If you have a lot of onions to peel. So now there's a couple different ways to slice an onion. I think the more formal, if you want to look at a formal way, again, you could take your 3 fingers to hold down your onion so it doesn't move. You get a little bit more control over it. Just 3 fingers, and you're going to slice your knife halfway through it, and then make your little rows. Turn it, and then you can chop it.
For our viewers, Nate is one of our nutrition educators here. He is also a trained chef, so he has always have great tips for us for these very sort of fine cooking skills. So the root end also helps hold it together while you're chopping it, so you don't have those slices, falling over when you need to go back and chop it in the other direction. So
right, and a chef tip too is don't throw this away. If getting too close, if that makes you nervous because you're afraid you're going to chop your fingers, don't throw it away. You could save these, and you can make chicken stock or soup out of like the little onion ends. It's another little tip for how you can use kitchen cooking scraps. I do want to demonstrate this little food chopper because I've seen these a lot. And if you work with children or you have children and they're curious about helping you in the kitchen, a food chopper is also a great tool you can use or they can use without having to use a knife. So it just puts on your cutting board, you push it down, and they love it. It's like the fun thing. I want to push it. So as you can see, it chops it. We're going to do this little piece so you can see it again. So
my kids, I do not have one of those, but my kids would love using that.
And that way you don't have to be worried if they're using a knife or even for yourself, if it's hard, to hold a knife or so we're just going to add this to our pot too. All right. Lastly, our pieces of garlic. Now, super easy way to peel garlic is just take the heel of your hand and just push down on it. You'll hear it crush, and the paper will just peel right off.
So we will post this recipe in the chat. I'm scrolling to see if we've done that yet. For you guys to have, as always, our recipes are for Maryland Snap Ed are all at eatsmart.umd.edu. You can search by ingredient, which is a great way to cook with what you have available. But again, like Nate said, this is a very, very flexible. Chili is just kind of a choose your own adventure kind of recipe. So.
All right. So now that we have all of our vegetables and beans and tomatoes in the pot, we're gonna place if we're working on a stovetop, about medium to medium low. I have about 2 cups of chicken broth. We're gonna add that. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Now, when we're adding any kind of heat to any recipe, if you are a person who likes it spicy or not so spicy, you can always add more to your recipe. You can't take it out. So with that said,
chili powder varies a lot in how spicy it is. I don't think there's one standard chili that's used in your supermarket chili powder. So some are much spicier than others. I've also found if it's been sitting in your cabinet for a while, it might lose some of its heat, but if it's a brand new bottle. So I think that's great advice that you can just, slowly work. And also it tends to if it does have a little heat, it also kind of takes a little while in the chili for it to kind of open up and get as spicy. So it might not taste as spicy immediately as it will after it cooks for a while.
We're adding
As you're doing that, I want to ask our listeners, what are your favorite spices to add to chili? So we've got chili powder and cumin in here. What else? Wait, or if those are your favorite, post those. Fantastic.
So as they are going through that, we're stirring all the ingredients to incorporate everything together. You'll notice, um, there's a fair amount of liquid into it. What's going to happen is as it cooks over time, it will thicken. As the beans and the sweet potatoes cook, it's going to really all come together.
Great. That's beautiful.
So don't worry if you think, oh my God, there's like a lot of liquid. That liquid will cook off and cook down as it goes. So
We have someone who likes Ursa loves adding cinnamon to her chili. Might be unusual to some. Oh, cumin, smoked paprika. Oh man, I have to say, I discovered smoked paprika a while ago, and it really does just give you a really excellent flavor. It can be a little on the expensive side. Regular paprika too. Tina points out garlic or onion powder, which are very expensive, and if you don't have garlic or fresh garlic or onion on hand, you can use those. So thanks for those suggestions. While we wait for our final presentation. Oh, Terry, a small amount of lime. Excellent. Yeah, brighten flavors. A little acid is great. So we are going to actually show a resource that we have about cooking with beans and talk a little bit about this. This is something we've been doing a lot of this year, talking about ideas for different ways to use our pantry staples. So we're going to put links to these resources in the chat. On the left is the cooking with beans, which gives the breakdown that Nate described earlier about how much yield you get out of dried beans once they're cooked, as well as the long soak and short soak method, which is just great to have those things in print, and you can access those through the links that we're going to post in the chat shortly. But we're also going to talk through this Beans 5 Ways. So we have a series of these resources available for thinking about new and creative ways to use things that are in your pantry. Well, thank you for those comments, by the way, folks who are continuing to add ideas. Faye, the Judy Center, Faye shared red pepper flakes and oregano is a great addition. And then the Judy Center in Sudlersville, chili powder, cumin, garlic, cayenne, and smoked paprika. I would eat that chili, let me tell you. All right, so sorry about that. I had to acknowledge those great comments. So the links to these resources are in the chat. So the Beans 5 Ways talks about using beans in chili or taco filling. Obviously, we are making chili right now, but taco filling, we're going to actually post a recipe for using a bean-based taco filling rather than a ground beef-based taco filling. And it actually refers to using refried beans, which you get in a can. But you and I were talking yesterday about sort of making your own version of refried beans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with refried beans, it could be a puree. You're just cooking the beans. In a traditional refried beans, they use usually lard or large amounts of fat to help cook down the beans and get that texture, that smooth texture of pureeing them. There are healthier options for making refried beans, such as using some olive oil instead of, like, say, lard.
Yeah, and I'll even just saute some garlic and then toss in the beans and maybe a little extra water and mash them with a potato masher, and they get
Right.
kind of nice and creamy
Right.
from the sort of starch in the beans.
Right.
So it also on this mentions a bean dip. Basically, you can just add beans, black beans or pinto beans, to a jarred salsa, and we have a recipe video actually making what we call confetti bean salsa. It also has corn, which adds some color. So yeah, adding beans to salsa, add some protein, add some substance to it. Is this something you like to do, Nate?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and beans go great. Essentially, they could even be just tossed in after you cook them in a salad, just kind of sprinkled over the top. and making a black bean salsa. And another great use for leftover chili is making enchiladas or burritos. Those are just another great options for it. And I think the why I love this recipe so much is there's so many things that you can do with it, and it's really just a lot of variety and ways to kind of make it your own too.
Yeah, you could use leftover chili as if it was a dip for
Right.
for
Right.
the whole grain chips. So talked about on the handout, adding beans to homemade soups. There's lots of great recipes that use beans as an ingredient. One thing I like to do is if you are have a soup recipe that calls for beans, especially white beans, is I'll hold some of them out and puree them with some water and then add them back in, and it makes the soup kind of creamy and thick. And I think you said your one thing you like to make was a white bean chili, so it's sort of a
Yeah, chicken white bean chili.
excellent. Oh, and Tina also shared top a baked potato with leftover chili, and I bet you that would work with white bean chili as well. So,
Absolutely. Um,
um, rice and beans. So we've got a recipe for a snappy dish. I mean, rice and beans are a staple in many parts of the world. You get a complete protein when you have the combination of rice and beans. And what's your favorite kind of bean to use with rice and beans, Nate?
to make a rice and bean, we have the red beans, but also like a nice black bean too. To do, I think traditional rice and beans would be like a red bean and rice um, Latin Latin dish. So just in most regions of the world, you will find that their cuisines in their regions incorporate beans. So as we are featuring this today, so it does pair well with many dishes and from different locations. So and
Great.
varies.
And then the last tip on this sheet is incorporating beans into salad. So that can just mean adding them in to a tossed salad. We are going to post a recipe for a garden cannellini bean salad. I will say that cannellini beans or any white bean, navy beans are my favorite to add to salads, as well as garbanzo beans. How about you, Nate? What do you like to add to your salads?
I gotta say the black beans are just great, but also garbanzo beans, they have like a really nice delicate flavor, and kind of give it, especially if you marinate them, and then toss them in a salad. So I really can't go wrong with any kind.
It
So
sounds
but
delicious.
I will go ahead and I want to finish showing a few things that you can do um, to to plate, or I guess to serve with your chili. So the first thing we're gonna do is I have some fat-free cheese. Um, you could sprinkle about a teaspoon of cheese into it.
And so this is chili that you was cooking in your slow cooker.
Yes, yes, yes. So yesterday, uh, we started. Well, I should say we started it earlier in a slow cooker. If you are cooking chili in a slow cooker, it does take about 7 to 8 hours. So,
But that,
um,
I mean, you just can see how rich and beautiful and smooth that's gotten.
yeah,
You kind of don't see all the individual pieces anymore. That just looks absolutely delicious.
yeah. So we're gonna add a dollop, or I should say, a teaspoon of sour cream, and then some fresh cilantro.
Beautiful. And if you don't have sour cream, plain yogurt is a great substitute.
Absolutely. We're gonna add some cilantro leaves to it, and then fresh squeezed lime juice is another great thing to garnish. But I know a lot of folks, if you have a favorite item that you pair with your chili, like an avocado, uh, you know, fresh tomato, feel free, leave a comment. We love to hear
Yeah.
any kind of feedback.
So we do have a few comments. I want to acknowledge Terry likes to put leftover chili on top of cornbread and kind of make its own new rendition of the dish with some cheese on top. Oh, that just looks absolutely delicious. So thanks, Nate. This is wonderful. Um, that looks delicious. I'm hungry, and I'm sure you're going to have it delicious lunch as well. So as we close out, I just had a few reminders that I want to share with everyone. We're going to put up a slide here that just reminds you of some remaining, there we go, dates in our series. So right now what we have on the docket, we probably will extend, but right now we have scheduled next week, February 25th, we're going to be making lettuce wraps featuring canned chicken, or you can use canned tuna or canned salmon. And then on March 4th, we're going to be celebrating peanut butter by a couple different snacktivities. So fun things that you can make with your kids using peanut butter, getting them involved in the kitchen. So make sure you like our Facebook page and turn on notifications to join. That'll give you a reminder to join the live broadcast. Also, these are automatically recorded onto Facebook and appear in our feed. So you can go back and access them there, and please share them with anyone that you think could use this information. We also, if we go to the next slide, have the videos posted on YouTube. They're recorded there in a series. Also lots of other cooking videos, recipe videos, and educational resources for kids. And then, as I mentioned before, eatsmart.umd.edu is where you can find all of the SNAP-Ed recipes that we use in our programs, and are just thrilled to share with anybody who wants to make healthful, delicious foods for their family. So thank you, Nate. This was awesome. That chili looks delicious. We have a lot of hungry viewers. And just join us back here next week, everyone. Please check in on food resources in your community. Check on the status of school meals, both today in the bad weather, as well as things transition to hybrid. If your kids are going back to school or not, how meals are going to be handled. And also look for resources in your pantry if your family is struggling to put food on the table, to the food pantries and other food access programs that are available, and take advantage of them by using some of these great recipes. So thanks, Nate, and thanks to everybody who's watched us, and we will see you back here next week, Thursday, February 18th at 11 a.m.